Hangeul Festa 2023 Be a Storyteller submission, spoken in English. The Sun and the North Wind. It was a chilly spring day, and the sun hung lazily in the sky. She gazed down at the earth below, watching as the north wind wound playfully through the grasses and leaves. "Hey there!" called out the sun. "I wasn't expecting to see you today." The wind rustled over the treetops and replied, "Oh, I was bored. I've been breezing around considering how to make things interesting. Perhaps I should whip up a tornado." Just then, a man appeared, hurrying along the stony road. "At last, someone to play with. If only he had a hat I could blow off." The sun rolled her eyes. "Leave the poor man alone, you naughty little gust," she chided. But the north wind wasn't listening. He was too busy thinking of ways to make trouble. He zipped around the man, flipping up his fancy-looking coat. It gave the wind an idea. "I've got it! How about a competition?" The sun looked down at the wind with suspicion. He wasn't exactly known for playing fair. "What exactly did you have in mind?" she asked. The north wind spun up towards her, flossing the clouds into spirals. "Look at you. You're always hanging around doing nothing but burn, yet people seem to worship your every appearance. I think it's time to prove they've been worshipping the wrong element." As tricky as the north wind could be, the sun was still curious. After months of winter with very little to do, she had grown bored and itched for a little excitement. "And how do you propose we prove that?" she asked, her gaze following the wind as he tracked closely behind the man, blowing little dust clouds around his feet and dirtying his shoes. "It's a very fine coat he's wearing, is it not?" the wind commented. "I bet I could steal it right off his back. For that is the strength of the wind. I'd like to see you try and remove his coat from all the way up in the sky," the wind giggled, very pleased with his own plan. The sun smiled. "You know, dear wind, strength can be measured in more ways than one." "Nonsense," laughed the north wind. "You're just scared because you know you can't win." The sun sighed, knowing she would never be able to resist a chance to humble the north wind. "As you wish." The north wind zipped through the bushes, rustling every leaf in excitement, while the sun hung back to watch his first attempt. To begin with, the wind just tickled the man's collar, testing the sturdiness of its fabric. But this only made the man pull his coat more closely around himself. Irritated, the wind blew a little harder, but this only made the man quicken his pace. The wind's frustration rose, and taking a deep breath, he inflated the coat like a balloon. However, the man only grabbed his coat tighter, tucking it firmly around himself in protection from the shiver running up his spine. The wind was livid and more than a little out of breath. The sun chuckled and called down to him, "Step aside, wind, it's my turn." Indignantly, the wind backed away from the man, more than a little curious as to how the sun planned to release the man's iron grip on his coat. A calm smile spread across the sun's face as heat began to radiate out of her, bright rays spreading across the fields below. She grew hotter and hotter until beads of sweat began to drip down the man's face. He loosened his coat a little, wafting it like a pair of wings to help a little air circulate around his body. But the sun didn't stop there. The warmth enveloped the entire land, heating the rocks and twigs and even between each blade of grass. The poor man's face began to glow red as he dabbed at his sweat-soaked forehead with one sleeve. But the heat was relentless. The man stopped in his tracks, panting with effort, before finally removing his coat and fanning himself with the fabric. The wind was flabbergasted. With seemingly little effort, the sun had managed to make the man remove his coat, and, in so doing, had won the competition. The sun cooled her flames and raised an eyebrow at the wind, who nodded back at her reluctantly. "Oh, all right, you win," he conceded. "You are indeed the strongest. What will you ask for as your prize?" The sun considered for a moment before grinning at the wind. "I have always believed there is more strength in wisdom than in force, and the only prize I ask is that in the future you remember that." The wind grinned back. "I shall try, but unfortunately winds have very short attention spans, I'm afraid." He dashed through the tall grasses and up towards a flock of sparrows on their way to find shelter, buffeting them around, making it hard for them to fly straight. "Do me a favour, Sonny. If you see someone with an umbrella, let me know," he called back, leaving the sun to glow in peace. The sun nodded and went back to watching the distant little sprouts poking their heads out of the ground, patiently waiting for the day they would become flowers under her warmth.